writing React code, he then went to Flutter. A lot of the learnings of Flutter are also in Compose, but the goal of this is that your animations are not as fancy as Flutter APIs, but a lot of them are not supposed to be for Android. How many of you know that Android X, what is Android X? Or if you know, are you aware? Great, yes? How many of you know it's Kotlin multi-platform now? It's completely supporting, I think it's about 90% support of Kotlin multi-platform. You don't have to use any third-party library as long as you know what Android X and Android is, and you bring it over to the global world, a global stage called Kotlin multi-platform. Some of those library animations are also benefited here. Just imagine this. Anyone who is a Flutter engineer, if you are not comfortable with Compose code, nothing fancy here. Kotlin function, some button, I click on it, I want to animate it. What I'm doing here is this. Be very careful when you're using these APIs. Right now, the support is growing. It's not 100% support. But if you use something like this, animate as state, this is now a Compose runtime API. And it renders something on the UI. That means Compose runtime is not actually a Android-only thing. It's now a Kotlin multi-platform. Okay? Moving ahead, if you have animation like these, please do figure out, when you put a code for Compose, how do you take it further? Now, one important thing I want to kind of bring out here is that when you work with data, how many of you have like 1 million API calls a month in a single app? Let's say at GeoCinema, we have so many users who are consuming content. And this is a purely Compose app. How many of you knew that it is a Compose app? Or didn't know? Okay, no one knew. Great, okay. So, surprise, yes, we write everything in Compose. It's not a very stable app, but it's still getting there, right? No harm, no foul, nothing, don't worry. We are working on performance bits. But when I'm talking about pure Android, you realize I'm still saying it's not a really good app. But if you realize, if I'm putting this equation in Kotlin multi-platform, where the target audience is iPhones, the web and desktop, a lot of the APIs are still stabilizing. So there are two things that I want to call out. How many of you have an app which has no network requirement? Hello worlds of the app? Okay, great. One hello. Okay, there's one in the back. Okay. We all realize that 99.99% all of us have network calls and have databases and so forth. And the magic show is, instead of using retrofit, very similar retrofit interfaces, you could do something like this. I'm using Ktor here, nothing crazy. I'm putting the response set. If a repository call comes, I'm going to call for it. That's it, nothing crazy. Next, if I have RoomDB, how many of you use RoomDB? How many of you know it is actually Kotlin multi-platform supportive now? You didn't know? Great, okay. Now, the fun thing is there are SQL Delight, loads of great libraries out there. My whole goal of showing you RoomDB here is that many people are still Android engineers, and they're migrating over to the next set of things, right? The goal of RoomDB being multi-platform now is your migration scripts are easier. You don't have to think about database migration. You just have to think of how you're going to write your code. See, your end user doesn't care whether it's Flutter or not. I do. Like, I'm an engineer, I will go and debug layout inspector. Oh, it's a Flutter, okay, bad. Oh, Kotlin, great, right? But I do care about how my data performance is, right? Imagine if GeoCinema is stuck for 15, 20 minutes just to load a simple video. It's crazy, right? How many of you love ads? Okay, great. Hopefully this video reaches my manager. He'll love this. Okay, good. Anyway, RoomDB, nothing crazy. SQL Delight is still great, okay? You can still do all your Android things back in Kotlin multi-platform, okay? Now, if you want to do something very pixel perfect, you want to do the best UI in the world, you can still do that with Compose. The whole goal is that you dive into how Compose runtime works. What is the one problem with other frameworks? Again, I'm going to name Flutter. We get fancied and wowed by how easy it is to write 1 line, 20 lines, and there is a fancy animation, car driving across, some person coming and opening the stage, and all that animation in Flutter native APIs. But imagine doing that in Compose. That's not the goal of an app. How many users will use that screen more than once? Imagine the onboarding screen being simple, but then as you go inside the app, it's utter crap. Every single screen, every single point of your app is a surface where people will react and say, "Arey, what is this crap?" Right? So when I talk about Compose architectural depth, there's so much engineering that went into how Compose natively draws something on canvas. Imagine that in Android, but also in Kotlin multi-platform. You learn it once, you get benefit in Compose across all the platforms. Most importantly, remember how the modifiers work. With the latest Compose, if you write one modifier, modifier.align, and then put another align, which one do you think will work first? It's the the order of things will matter. Same rules that you've done in Android also applies in Kotlin multi-platform. And when you talk about caching, how do you do, I think there were some web questions in the previous session, like how do I do this in web browser and so forth. When I'm talking about UI, a lot of these experiences matter. I'm building down native code for web through JS, but through Kotlin, but now have to write those UI components and they have to cross the line. They have to be the end user problem, right? Like, how's your browser? Is your internet fast? Do you have 5G? Are you living in Bangalore? Traffic stuck and all that crap. There's so many challenges that every app developer faces when you're on this side of the equation. But when you're on the other side, you will cry about all this foul. So the whole point of the slide is just to show you that Compose has a lot of great documentation out there. Do not just be wowed by just seeing some fancy things. I'm going to be showing you some fancy libraries, some great authors that have written crazy amount of Compose code in less than a month, and they have done a wonderful job across all platforms. So anyway, moving on. Okay. Now, I just want to show you one simple trick here. How many of you want to bring drag and drop in Compose? We saw that in today morning thing, right? You can still do this draggable gesture even in multi-platform. I'm not doing anything crazy here. I'm not showing any Compose code. I'm just showing you how modifiers still work across a lot of platforms, right? This same code, the structure still remains in shared UI and then shared across different platforms, okay? Moving on. Oops, yeah, okay. Now, I want to think in the terms of how complex my UI should look like. If you can break it down, I've seen a lot of great engineers write everything in one line of code. Like, okay, everything in one line of code. Imagine reading, scrolling to the left, to the right. That's not how things are. One pro tip I'll give you is use Compose. Be smart about how to do state hoisting. Today's topic is not about Compose, but remember state hoisting. Please bring some of those learning practices there. When you start working with testing, how many of you actually write UI test? At Geo, we don't do it. Don't worry. We are getting there. Yeah, okay. Now, the problem is that we have a lot of code, but how do you test it? The same logic that you would do on your daily apps, Android apps, can also be brought over, because a lot of the libraries are migrating over to KMP. The amount of time I spend on Twitter just to read about KMP is far greater than Instagram or even my own Slack channels. Sometimes I'm on Twitter just, oh, okay, this is library, great, I have to go back to my laptop and see something. That's how exciting things are. There's so many people who are migrating over their native libraries, even on iPhones and iOS worlds, moving over to Kotlin native. Charts, libraries, all the things are coming across. JetBrains has an amazing set of libraries already out there. I'll show you some of those in this talk, don't worry. I have a few more minutes. Okay. Now, performance is a very important thing. How many of you think today's world, all the apps, okay, what's your favorite app? General audience, shout out one name that you really enjoy as a performance of an app. WhatsApp, okay, where is this guy, man? Okay, please meet me after I have some special treat for you. Okay, yeah, okay. So the thing is, imagine you are in the middle of the road, you have to book an Uber. I'm taking Uber as an example, nothing against them. But imagine the driver not coming to you and the UI is not refreshing. What would you do? You'll throw the phone, buy a new iPhone. Something like that, right? Like, or you'll curse at the developers. Imagine the same thing happening with your apps. If you're thinking performance, remember that Compose is still, it's stable. It's the Compose world in the Kotlin multi-platform is still getting mature, but it doesn't mean that it's very bad. Everything that you write in your code is your responsibility. Compose as a framework is great, but if you don't use the APIs correctly, if you don't use the modifiers in the correct placement, your performance will degrade. A simple example, how many of you use GeoCinema Android app or on the iPhone side? Okay, have you seen the carousel on the top? How many of you think it is easy to build it? Easy, difficult? I can write it in a night, daydream. No? Okay, difficult, okay. I'm here to break that myth for you. It's very simple. It's a simple horizontal pager with simple animations to it. Every time the page scrolls, we also take the offset and tweak. If you have not seen the animation, please download it. That way, I'll get some credit with my manager. Please download it. If you have any problems, me and River are here, we can talk to you. But the whole point is performance matters. We upgraded one Compose version, everything broke. I'm still fixing it, by the way. We have not gone live with new Compose version. We're still on some ancient version, I think 1.2 or something. We have not even migrated to the BOM, bill of materials of Compose. There's so many challenges there. But that doesn't mean that Compose is bad. It means that I have not written good code, or my team is currently optimizing for it. So when I talk about performance, remember that attention is very important to every small detail. Irrespective of what you do on your code, make sure that your performance is highlighted across all screens. I'm currently building a native app across 3 different things. If you see the website today's schedule, there's an app that I'm going to be launching very soon, no promotions. I'm building it in Compose multi-platform. I had so many network challenges, I had so many animation challenges. But once I understood what I'm doing wrong, I went back, rewrote some of it, not launched it, that's why I'm not here promoting it. But I've rewritten it, now I'm getting faster performance. far better than me just writing an Android app. And by the way, I'm just sharing the code once across all platforms. You'll be able to find it on any screen that you own. That's the beauty of things, okay? Next, accessibility. How many of you actually care about people who are blind, who don't have some of the same great tools that we have? The same principles also applies for every platform. If you were an iPhone engineer, you would still be writing accessibility. How many of you actually have a talkback? How many of you know what talkback API is? Oh, that's so sad, yaar. So many people don't know. Okay, same APIs on Android are also slowly available as a Kotlin multi-platform specific library that you can then go do something as i811n, and you can do a lot of those ASCII characters rendering, how your font gets rendered. Everything is available on the Compose world. Okay. Now, moving on. We have 3 more minutes. I'm just going to wrap this up very quickly. I have a small thing that I've done. Imagine that I have a store that sends and shares events. What I do with this is I have written a coroutine scope extension that creates a store. The whole point is that irrespective of what the action is, action could be a back button and so forth. How many of you have back buttons in your code? I'm pretty sure everyone, obviously, right? We have back buttons, gestures, and so forth. I take this and put it in my shared UI, shared module, sorry, and then call this back handler composable. How many of you have seen this code before? If you've written Compose, you know that back handlers are very simple interfaces that you can control your entire thing. With this approach, what I've done is, this is a pattern I followed across someone's, I forgot who the author is, it's on Twitter. He explained it so well that I started to use it, and now I've forgotten it, like how it even, who was the author. The point is, all I have to do is just say event, start collect. If you have worked with Flow, you're just putting everything together, and then whenever you press back, if it is enabled, you can start collecting events across iPhones and Androids, by the way. It's no longer an Android API, okay? Next, sorry, I have a few things. I just want to kind of, if I can just get 1 minute of your attention. You see something funky over here. How many of you can notice the bug? Okay, many of you have great eyes, man. All of you are great, amazing, okay. This is iOS. I'll show the same on Android. How many of you think this is also buggy? No, not buggy, it's smooth, correct? It's a one-line change. All I have to do is just put focus property can focus on the iOS shared UI component. iOS also becomes as smooth as this. So this is what I meant when I showed you those slides for UI, that when you talk about performance, read about the architecture. Just don't say, "Arey, I am a Compose multi-platform engineer." Understand what Compose is. Have you noticed something funny today? I'm wearing a specific t-shirt today. How many of you know what the symbol is? It's the Kotlin Codex. It's the mascot for Kotlin. The whole point is I'm not here as a GD Android. I'm actually here to promote Compose and multi-platform. The whole point is that I am actually going in depth of every single thing in Compose, and then slowly figuring out what is going wrong, patching it. Now I'll take you through some examples. Sorry, yeah. Nothing great, start small, don't migrate everything over. If you're working at a company as good as, say, Flipkarts of the world, GeoCinemas, and so forth, no manager will support you to start writing Kotlin tomorrow, Kotlin multi-platform. Start small, do your own personal projects, start promoting within the team, even if you're a junior developer, go to your architects. If you're working at my company, please come and talk to me. I'll try and help. Or if you want to join us, we're here to answer your questions. The whole point is leverage common code. The whole point of this talk is that we are writing code once, and we are sharing it across platforms, okay? Nothing crazy. You'll get the slides at the end of the day, don't worry. Always embrace the latest source code. How many of you actually use the latest Android Studio? Do you know there is an IDE called Fleet by JetBrains? Yeah? How many of you used it? I can see one smart hand out there. Okay. It's a great tool because I don't have to install Xcode anymore on my Mac OS. You can actually use Fleet across Windows also. You can still write Apple code without using an Apple machine. Okay? Okay. Test rigorously. How many of you write unit tests? Okay. Everything still matters. Okay, sorry. I have less than 20 seconds. I'm just going to race through this. Community is a key. Events like these, events like Kotlin Conf and so forth, please go and read, watch those videos. There's so much of content out there that a simple Google search or chat GPT cannot answer, or even Bart. Sorry, I'm at a Google event. Bart can also not answer. There's so many great people out there that are solving problems. So maybe someday I'll see you on the other side where you're presenting and I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't know this. Great, right? So there are loads of those things where all these things that we have shown so far, all of these are Kotlin multi-platform supported. If you're crazy about all of these things, everything is available. Yeah, sorry, I'm running few seconds late. Just wanted to show you some resources that are out there. Kotlin Slack, I hope all of you are a part of it. If you come across any problem, please do reach out. I'm here. Loads of folks in the community are also there. There's also something called multi-platform published library. We are building analytics SDK at GeoCinema, which is completely KMP supportive, across JavaScript, across web, We have set-top boxes, we have TVs, Samsung, Tysons, and different kind of world. All of that is pretty much built on some principles. So we have loads of community support that we have come across. Now I have a fun giveaway. If you scan this QR code, I know we have very less time. Please do scan. If you win this thing, there's some crazy stickers for you. These are not publicly available, all courtesy of JetBrains. I was able to procure some for you guys. Definitely go and scan this and try and, I'll be here for maybe a few more minutes after this, maybe 30 minutes, and I'll see if I can get your high scores and I'll gift you something crazy, okay? Okay, I just want to call out one thing. There's a great friend of mine, Shashi. He's built this amazing Compose shade. How many of you think this is native UI, first of all? This is all Compose, by the way. This is Android, iPhone, different devices and so forth. Everything is built, and there's a multi-platform app for RSS. Okay, next. Some resources, don't worry, slides will be available. Don't click it. And if you still are curious, there are loads of libraries out there. Just one slide. Just want to call out a few libraries out there. This list is ever growing. I kind of ran out of slides because, or time, literally, in literal sense, to show you how many great libraries are out there that you can do on your daily days, but also over here. Okay. There's also Compose Wizard. Don't worry if you don't know how to set up a project. I still use this. I can literally set this up, put all the checkboxes of the libraries you want. Everything is a merry-go. Okay, next. There's also a call out for review stock, because if you're curious of how we have done at Geo Cinema, like how we have done Analytics SDK, please do go check out his link. There's a link at the bottom. There's some great insights of how KMP works. Okay, and that's it, folks. If you have any questions, I know I'm way over time. I'll be right outside. If you have any questions, do attend other talks. I'll be here some more time. Yeah, thank you. Do we have time for questions?
Yes, I mean,
yeah,
just
great.
2 questions. One from this side. 2 golden questions, please.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Adit, for that. I think I speak for everyone that it was super helpful and super educational. If I can just ask you to go back to the QR code for the benefit of the whole room, and then I'll ask my question.
Sure, yeah. I'll
right?
just
The QR code, I think you'll have to go forward.
Resources.
It was the third last slide.
You remember to edit slides at the end, and this is what happens. I literally edited 30 minutes before the talk. Like, I'm going to put something here. Okay,
it's amazing that everything's moving so fast that we had so many great speakers today on both stages, and they've all literally been updating it today.
Oh yeah, I'm a very last minute. Like every one of us, we do last minute preparations for our slides or exams.
No, I just meant like things are already slightly out of. Are slightly outdated or slightly updated, rather. Okay. No, my question was basically, that all of this is amazing, I think, for us to understand and learn. What I would personally ask you would be, for somebody who's very keen on multi-platform and very keen on getting started with Kotlin, what are some pre-requirements in terms of, or suggested reading before we get started with Kotlin that will make it much easier for us? Or if you feel that's not required, then what's a really great place to start with Kotlin for absolute noobs or beginners within Kotlin? Like, let's assume basic computer science knowledge.
Okay, so good that you ended with that computer science as a last part, right? See, any language today, Kotlin is a great tool out there. But if I take design patterns, every language, every operating system is the same thing. If you can learn the patterns, design patterns, and if you can think of how Kotlin even does it, how many of you we have written so many different codes, right? Before Kotlin, I was still a Java developer. Now there are loads of small things that matter. That same patterns exist in Kotlin, but in a slightly more performant way. So when you're learning a language, remember one simple trick. Read the damn documentation. Don't just assume everything works out of the box. What is the box? How many of you have heard of this thing called think outside the box, right? You have to be in the box to even think there's a world outside, right? So that's the tip I would give. Kotlin is very easy to get started. It's literally a week of effort, and you should be very good to go on your way. Yeah, cool.
One last question, please. Anybody?
Oh, I might have hit the limit. I'm so sorry about that. Don't worry. It's basically cottonquiz.com. Just go there. If you get 70 plus or above, I'll give you a sticker sheet. It's completely customized. Yeah, cool. Any other questions? No? Okay, great. If you're still curious, you can always talk to me at the end. Oh, there's one over there, yellow. Sorry, if you have time. Yeah, sorry for the next speaker if I'm eating away into your time.
Is there a way to try out test-driven development, any tools and techniques?
There's quite a lot. It's good that you asked test-driven development. I would recommend, irrespective of what framework you use, start thinking of writing tests first and then, see, if you think about it, I'm just moving code around. It's not actually, I'm just sharing compose. I know this talk is about UI, but if you think about test-driven, you're actually testing your, the framework level problems. Like if you've written a specific business logic, the test coverage that you wrote in Android module just moved to shared module. Nothing crazy about it, okay? If you're thinking about how to do instrumentation test, end-to-end UI test framework, just know that there are loads of great libraries out there. I don't know if you've heard of something called mobile.dev's Mastro. It still supports Kotlin multi-platform. Yeah, cool. If you have more questions, sorry, I don't want to jump into someone else's time. I'll be outside and I'll try and answer your questions. Thank you. Have a good day.